Hello and happy Friday. I'm going to show you something at the end of this video. It's factual based on past data which shows that we're in a recession. This is something the news, the media, they're not showing you. It's been masked over, glossed over, whatever you want to call it, for quite a while. What does that matter? Well, in a recession, the odds of you losing a job go up. The odds that inflation continues and we have other problems continue to go up. So it does impact you. So 3 days a week I put on these episodes where we talk about interest rates and getting out of debt, what's going on in the economy, and every Friday what we do is we talk about assets, because I like to drive home the point that assets, things, go up in value and the dollar does not. Let me give you a quick visual. I should probably get some puppets, but I don't have puppets. Anyway, if you've got a car and we have inflation, that car becomes worth more. Maybe gold, maybe silver becomes worth more. Now, maybe things like crypto become worth more. Maybe things like real estate become worth more. But dollars, when there's inflation, become worth less. Now, the car is probably not a great example because it's generally a depreciating asset. But some people realized when we had, a couple of years ago, when we had massive inflation, 8, 9, 10%, whatever it was, they may have thought, oh, my Honda Civic's worth $12,000. All of a sudden, you go to a dealer or they call you and it's worth $15,000. Within 6 months or a year, it just shot up in price. Because with inflation, those assets went up in value. But how many of you went online, opened up your bank account and said, wow, my $1,000 balance became $1,200? No. All of the things you may have owned went up in value, assets, but the dollars go down. Inflation kills that. So what we do every Friday, I've been doing this since February, is pointing out that we may not, this is never financial advice, it's just for entertainment purposes, but what I do is I diversify. Sure, I've got money in my emergency fund. I have videos on that. Sure, I've got some money for my general expenses on a couple month basis, but everything else is held in either gold or silver, or I'm into cryptocurrency. Of course, you can put it into longer term things like real estate, stocks, whatever it may be, but we talk about just that part of your savings that you might be holding for a longer period of time. You're trying to grow your wealth. What do the wealthy do? They put it into assets, because when inflation goes up, those assets also go up in value, as opposed to your assets going up and your dollars going down. To illustrate that point, recently I saw an article that said there were individuals in China that were worried about their currency going down at a quick rate, just like ours is going down. And what were they doing? Many of them were buying real estate, because real estate, as the saying goes, is a hedge against inflation, which basically means, generally speaking, most of the time when you have inflation, you have an increase in real estate prices. Now, there may be a bubble that could have a correction. Those things happen. But over a long period of time, if you look at the value of the dollar going down and you look at the value of assets like real estate going up. So they say, okay, well, do you want to hold dollars when they become worth less? Or do you want to hold real estate or gold or silver, whatever it may be? So we're going to go over and talk about various assets that you could hold in place of dollars. Now, one thing is always liquidity. What does that mean? Well, if you have an asset and you need money, how quickly can you turn it into cash? Because odds are you're going to need to use cash transactionally to pay for things. All of a sudden, kid needs braces. All of a sudden, you need new tires, whatever it may be. And maybe you didn't have enough in your emergency fund, so you've got to go tap something else. If you have physical gold or physical silver, the process of turning it into dollars can take a while, but there's ETFs. You can just log into a brokerage account and purchase an ETF of gold and silver, and then you can sell it fairly quickly as well. And you don't have to go in and buy an ounce through an ETF. You can buy $50 worth, $100 worth. Do it over time. I do that every month, the dollar cost average. I buy a little bit of all these different assets every single month. So I've got some that goes to cash and stays there and some that moves on. So let's take a look at this week's numbers comparatively to last February when we started. I look at it every week. So the first thing we look at here is we look at what if you just took your dollars. You weren't sure about gold, you weren't sure about silver and crypto and all this stuff, and you said, I just want to make it easy. I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to buy a CD. Or first off, let's start with savings. What would my savings rate be? Well, last week was 0.45 on average, and in February it was 0.46. These numbers are updated once a month. You see, you could get a CD, short term, let's say 3 month. You don't want to lock it up too long. 1.53 last week. When I say last week, since these numbers are only updated once a month, that's what it is now as well. So savings is at 0.45, 3 month CDs 1.53, Treasury 3 month through the government 5.46. Not terrible, but if you just look down at the bottom, you'll see my inflation number for May was 3.3%. So you're barely beating inflation. Now let's take a look at these assets. This is what the rich do. They turn their money into assets. Back in February, gold was $2,050. It's down slightly from last week, but it's at $2,341. That's a 15% increase in a 6-month period of time. Now, like anything, assets are volatile. They'll go up, they'll go down. You don't want to put money in that you're going to need right away. This is kind of a longer term savings. Silver was $22.88 and it's now $29.59. It gotten up to over 30, but still 29, 22. So you're looking at a 30% jump. Bitcoin was at 43,000 in February. It's at 61,000. Crypto is a new industry and it's very volatile. So if you're not interested, you might not want to get involved. But for people like me who don't mind doing that sort of thing, don't mind the risk because I believe there could be a bigger payoff, I buy crypto. I have a channel, I'll put a link to it, where I just talk about crypto. Ethereum, $22.99 at the beginning of the year, now $34.52. Those are two of the largest market cap cryptos. Let's just leave it there, but they've gone up substantially, essentially 50%, and the Ethereum even more. So those are assets. So if you had your money in these assets, your money is worth 15% more, 30% more, 50% more, instead of just sticking it in a savings account and actually losing value. All right. Inflation. Inflation's still running hot, 3.3%. Why does that matter? Why do we look at that number? The Federal Reserve has said that they will not cut rates until they get inflation under 2%. They have to worry about two things, unemployment and inflation. Now, whether or not they're going to do that, I don't know. I have a feeling they're going to drop rates. I had a show on this the other day, maybe once by the end of the year. Initially, I didn't think they were going to do it all this year, but now I think they might do a rate cut because the government has to refinance quite a bit of debt. And since they can also control rates, even though the Fed isn't a government agency, they control rates. So what are they going to do? They're going to drop rates. Now, here's what I want to show you. The 2-year Treasury and the 10-year Treasury. What's a Treasury? That's where the government is borrowing money from you. You buy the Treasuries, you give them money. At the end of that period of time, you get your money back plus your interest. Okay. 2 years, 4.683. 10 years, 4.27. So you can get a higher rate of interest on a 2-year than on a 10-year. That doesn't make sense. We all know that if you're willing to lock up money for a longer period of time, you typically get a higher interest rate. So what does that mean? That's called an inversion. You see there, I said, yep, there's an inversion. So the 2-year is a higher rate than the 10. So look at this chart. This is what I wanted to show you. I don't care what anyone says. I believe we're in a recession. We've been in one for a while. I believe the economy is contracting. Our GDP, the production of the United States, is down. Inflation's up. Unemployment's up. Look at this chart here, and you'll see in this area, 90, 91, it was inverted. This is the inversion of the 2 and the 10-year. When it gets below this 0 line, that right there is what's called an inversion. So there it is, 90 to 91, it's below the line. If you look at, just hop on Wikipedia here, and you can see that's a recession. 2000s, below 0, recession. 2008, below 0, recession. Now, we've been below 0 for quite a while. We're in a recession. So the government, the media, they don't want you to realize that we're in a recession. They were able to print an unbelievable amount of money and hand it out, trying to print their way out of a recession. In other words, create money out of thin air, throw it into the economy, and hope that the recession never hits, because you're glossing it over with all this money you've thrown into the economy. Meanwhile, people are losing jobs. Things are getting more expensive. Everything's getting worse. GDP's going down. This isn't going to work. Something's going to break. Protect yourself. Have your emergency savings, and if you've got more, consider putting it into assets. Get out of debt, particularly high interest rate debt. Doesn't help if you're getting 5% on your money, but you're paying 24% on a credit card. So check out some of my other videos. I hope at the end of this video you're willing to become a subscriber, and please hit that like button. I like to get this message out to as many people as possible. I put usually 2 to 3 videos out every week teaching various methods of getting out of debt. I hope to help as many people as I can. Thank you. Have a great Friday.